Welcome to the Soya Says podcast. This is episode number 13. Now, I have written about this topic a lot, and that's why I was actually a bit apprehensive of doing a podcast episode on the big F. The big F in our lives is, of course, Facebook. That's what I'm talking about. So, if you go on my website, a cheap plug there, shoaibqureshi.in. So, if you go there and you check out some of my blogs under the social media category, you would realize that I have been critical about Facebook for a long time. I have written posts that range from how you can stop getting Candy Crush saga requests because Candy Crush used to be very popular back in the day. So, how do you stop getting requests for that game? I've written posts about that. And the range starts from there to how you can unfollow people on Facebook so that you don't see their posts anymore, and so on and so forth. So, I also realized what I think about Facebook has actually changed and evolved over the years. And right now, I feel is the right time to sort of look back, assimilate, sum up everything in one podcast episode. So let's go back. One of the first posts in this list of posts that I have about Facebook, one of the first ones was about how you should try going on a read only mode on Facebook. Now, what is this read only mode? What this means is you basically log in, you scan stuff, and you log out. You don't interact with anyone, you don't like, you don't comment, nothing. This is the read only mode for Facebook. And this mode, the read only mode, used to be easy when you didn't have an ad after each Facebook post. Right now, all you see are a bunch of ads. But even if you're okay with ads, you might not be okay with all the hatred and venom being spewed on Facebook day in and day out in the name of politics and religion and whatnot. That's specifically if you yourself, like me, have strong opinions about these topics. So, read only mode doesn't work anymore because you will be triggered with all the hate going around on Facebook. Now, one of the biggest reasons for that is the fact that other social media platforms, for example, on Twitter, you see stuff that triggers you from an anonymous person. So, this stuff is posted by an anonymous person. You're triggered by it, but end of the day, the person who posted it was anonymous. You don't even know them. So that is why it doesn't really matter that much. But on Facebook, you see that stuff from people who you know, people who are your neighbors, your friends, people that you thought you had good relationships with. And that's why you feel the urge to respond and put forth, your point of view. That's what you want to do. Now, here's a clip from a different podcast I was part of where I was talking about the sorry state of Facebook. So I'll insert that clip here. Here you go.
That's a really good question. I think if you ask me personally, I might say that I just grew up. 10 years ago when I was in college, Facebook would be a place where I would come in, I would make a post about how I had a great time with my friends today in the college. I might throw in a picture or two, and that's the use case that used to be the use case for Facebook earlier. And you might have had some friends who are not in the same city as you anymore, so you might want to keep a track of what's up in their world. You might want to keep a track of what's up in your ex's world, what's up with your crush and stuff like that, right? Today, people in college, are they really using Facebook? I don't think so, right? There are many other platforms that people make use of. So and Facebook itself has also changed today. When you log into Facebook, what you see is not what your friends are up to. Maybe just like me, my friends also grew up and nobody's posting anything on Facebook anymore, but it may be that I have unfollowed or unfriended so many people that I don't see anything on Facebook anymore. That's also a case. But if you log into Facebook today, what you're going to see is sponsored posts, and you're going to see posts by pages you might have not even liked, but Facebook might be pushing their content because they might be paying Facebook for other posts, right? So that their reach is basically increasing. So but then, a decade ago, when people would use Facebook like crazy, that was because Facebook was the only platform out there. Today, you have other big ass platforms, right? You have Instagram, you have WhatsApp, you have Snapchat, Tinder. I don't even know the other half if there are anymore. They used to be TikTok. Then there are OTT platforms. You've got Netflix, Amazon Prime, you've got YouTube. So there's so much more content to consume on the internet today than it was a decade ago. Now, today, the only reason I am going to use Facebook for is when I want to share something about my blog, about my YouTube video, or any link where I want some traffic to go. That's the only use case that I have today for Facebook. It is not a place to have a conversation anymore, right? And I'll give you an example. 10 years ago, you might make a post that, hey, I watched Three Idiots today and I didn't really like that movie. Today, I dare you, you make a post that says, I watched this surgical strike movie, Uri, whatever it was. So I watched Uri today and I totally didn't like it at all. And the conversation, the kind of conversation you're going to have on that kind of status post would end up with people asking you to shift to Pakistan, right? So, 10 years ago, someone really liked Three Idiots. They might say something like, uh, they really liked Three Idiots and I didn't like Three Idiots. And yeah, it's fun, light-hearted stuff. Today, it's paragraphs and paragraphs of propaganda, right? It's not fun anymore. So, initially I thought, okay, this person dropping paragraphs is completely mindfucked, and I gotta respond with a sensible comment, and I would do so. But then in response, some other guy might come in, he might drop in paragraphs of propaganda again. So initially, I thought, okay, I should stop sharing on Facebook. But I'm not good at that. I like to share what I'm thinking. So I thought, okay, let's just unfriend and unfollow people that I don't see eye to eye with. But then I realized, what's the point of Facebook, anyways, if you're going to do that, right? So if I want to share something and in response, all that I get is toxicity, I cannot fix that. I cannot fix the entire Facebook friends list, right? So what I can fix is myself. And so I fixed myself. I stopped sharing anything. And here's another thing: nobody argues on LinkedIn because LinkedIn has that office vibe. Nobody argues with you on personal messages because that has that one to one vibe. That's like speaking to a person in public, not in public. That's like speaking to a person in person, right? But public comments, their vibe is basically chaos. And you cannot fix chaos. Nobody can fix chaos. Now, all that I do is post stuff that people should ideally not argue on, and maybe some stories where if somebody drops a comment, it's a personal message. And people can be very different on personal message versus on public Facebook comments.
Now, one might wonder, isn't Facebook aware of all this? Doesn't Facebook know that their platform is going to the dogs because of all these haters and trolls and the negativity and toxicity on their platform? Well, that's what you might think, but I talked about how this is actually good for business in one of my previous blogs. You see, in the internet language, a hater or a troll is someone who deliberately pisses people off online to get a reaction. To get a reaction, that's the keyword there. When trolls and haters, they get a reaction, when they are able to incite a reaction, they are increasing the presence on platform, they are increasing the traffic on the platform, they are increasing engagement. Now here are some of the steps that can actually tell you how haters and trolls are actually good for business. Step 1, an influencer, let's call him Mr. A. So let's say Mr. A posts an image. Step 2, trolls gather around and they do what they do best. They drop hate comments, dissing comments, toxicity, negativity, preaching Mr. A, arguing, etc. etc. Step 3, such comments by haters, these comments incite engagement. Many people may simply drop a laugh emoji and join the troll party. But then there are some of Mr. A's fans and supporters who are going to come to the rescue. So these people are going to reply to the trolls, starting an all out keyboard war. As you can imagine, this keyboard war could get way more intense depending on the content being trolled. Step 4, now comes the important part. Here's how all of this is getting monetized. This is how Facebook is making money. Facebook, just like other platforms, they make money by showing you promoted content and ads. The more involved you are in a keyboard war, the more likely you are to either hang around and wait for replies from other trolls and haters and people that support Mr. A or whatever, or you are going to open the Facebook app multiple times. And when you open the app multiple times, or when you open the website multiple times, you basically see promoted content and ads multiple times. Now, step 5, you might think that keyboard wars are good for Facebook as they get to make money. But let's get a level deeper. Step 5 is where we get a level deeper. Why do you think this influencer, Mr. A, even after being trolled on every single post, why is Mr. A still active on Facebook? The reason for that is inciting comment war, inciting keyboard war leads to audience engagement. Facebook and the advertisers, they get to know that Mr. A's page is where the people are spending their time. It is possible that Facebook starts suggesting some other content of Mr. A to all those who participate in such keyboard wars. Mr. A's influence is skyrocketing at this point in time. Now, when Mr. A posts one of his own video with ads, of course, guess whether he gets high ad rates or low? You guessed it, pretty high, right? Because A, trolls are watching that video. B, Mr. A's fans are also watching that video. C, that video is being suggested to a large audience that might be interested in it based on, of course, the Facebook algorithm, based on their participation in a previous keyboard war or whatever. And D, there's the usual cycle of trolling and defending, inciting an all-out keyboard war that gets kicked off in the comment section of the video, driving more reach and more engagement for that post. Step 6. Finally, let's address the trolls. Typically, they are just haters and they are pretty satisfied with the likes and reactions and, responses and engagement that they incite by, making their comments and whatnot. But look no further and you will find many examples of how trolls have become enormously popular and they have also achieved influencer status themselves. Twitter is actually full of such examples, and there's a lot of money to be made in the influencer domain too. So here's the bottom line. After this 6 steps, here's the bottom line. A keyboard war is good for social media platforms. It is good for whoever is being trolled. It is also good for whoever is trolling. Finally, I think if you want to keep your mental sanity in check, unfriend and unfollow a whole bunch of those posting hatred and toxicity and negativity and stop logging into Facebook altogether. Even if you do the read-only mode, it will be much easier now because you won't see triggering stuff. You would see posts from pages you don't even follow. You will see ads. You will see some random people streaming games, some more ads and other such useless BS. So read-only will be easier if you unfollow and unfriend a whole bunch of people that post triggering stuff, that post negativity, that post toxicity. Now, I recently purchased a new phone and I decided that I'm going to install an app only when I actually need to use it. So when I went shopping and I had to make a payment digitally, I installed Google Pay, and that's how Google Pay got on my phone, and it's still there. And guess what? It's been a month, and I still don't have Facebook on my phone. I do have a messenger, the Facebook Messenger, because I share my Instagram stories on Facebook too. And I need to chat with a few folks, but you cannot, you can do that on Messenger. You don't need Facebook for chatting with folks on Messenger, right? Of course, for my project management website, I need to manage my Facebook group, but I do that on my computer, not on my phone. In the end, I would like to mention that the intention of this podcast is not to sell you the idea that you should be deleting your Facebook. But the intention is only to let you know a bit about how Facebook works and sort of share the behind the scenes of the Facebook algorithm and the way Facebook monetizes and makes money. It is really up to you what you do with your Facebook account, to be frank. In fact, if you want to understand more about how Facebook works and this whole toxicity and negativity floating around and why it is actually good for business, I would highly encourage you watch two movies or documentaries or whatever they are. Number one is The Social Dilemma, and number two is The Great Hack. Social Dilemma and Great Hack. Look out for them. And that's all in this episode. I'll see you in the next one.